This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, January 6th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of coronavirus, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Central African Republic's incumbent President Faustin Archange-Touadera has been re-elected in a poll that took place under the threat of rebel violence. David Doyle has our report.
It's time to dance at the headquarters of Central African Republic's ruling party after incumbent President Faustin Archange-Touadera was re-elected. The Electoral Commission said Touadera won his second term with more than 50% of the vote, avoiding the need for a second round in a poll that was held under a cloud of rebel violence. Fighters have attacked towns and blocked voting in parts of the country after former President Francois Bozize was barred from standing in the December 27th election. But for Touadera's supporters, like Civil Administrator Obin Rufin Didas Kondobi, Monday's result is a victory for the ballot over the bullet.
The people don't need weapons to take power. We've suffered so much, and today, you can see for yourself, he did his best to bring the country forward in 5 years. So it's totally normal that Central Africans voted for him.
The Constitutional Court rejected Bozize's candidacy because he faces an arrest warrant and UN sanctions for allegedly ordering assassinations and torture while president. He denies those charges. On Monday, prosecutors said an investigation had been launched into Bozize's role in the current rebellion. He could not be immediately reached, and his party has previously rejected accusations that the former president was plotting a coup, though some in the party have suggested that they are working with the rebels.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. A variant of the coronavirus first detected in South Africa is unlikely to completely negate the immunizing effects of vaccines, according to a researcher. British scientists are expressing concern that COVID-19 vaccines may not be able to protect against the variant identified by South African genomics scientists and which has now spread internationally. South African researchers are studying the effects of mutations in the variant, including whether natural immunity from exposure to older variants provides protection against reinfection by the new variant. Scientists have identified more than 20 mutations in the new variant, including several in the spike protein the virus uses to infect human cells. South Africa has recorded more than 1.1 million COVID-19 cases and more than 30,000 deaths, the most on the African continent, according to Johns Hopkins University data. Zimbabwe is now under a tight COVID-19 lockdown for 30 days. The new restrictions started on Tuesday as the government tries to curb rising coronavirus cases, and all public gatherings except funerals have been suspended, and an overnight curfew that previously began at 10 p.m. now begins at 6 p.m. New COVID-19 infections almost doubled between November and December. During the new level 4 lockdown, only essential services such as medical, supermarkets, mining, house and farm workers can report for duty. Britain entered another strict national lockdown Tuesday amid a sudden and sharp resurgence in cases of COVID-19 linked to a new variant of the coronavirus. Henry Ridgwell reports from London.
Britain's elementary schools had only reopened for the new term Monday morning. By the evening, Prime Minister Boris Johnson had reversed course, announcing a third national lockdown.
The government is once again instructing you to stay at home.
So schools and universities are closed.
It is something which will have a deep impact on children, a deep impact on their well-being and mental health.
The lockdown comes amid warnings that hospitals are being overwhelmed. The number of people hospitalised with COVID-19 is 40% higher than at the spring peak. Total deaths have risen above 75,000. The new variant of the coronavirus, identified in southern Britain in September, is up to 70% more infectious and is spreading across the country.
We have people in their 40s, their 30s, their 20s on our intensive care unit dying of COVID. We are having to think about whether we do cancer surgery. We're having to postpone cancer surgery because of the number of COVID patients we have in.
It's been one of the worst shifts of my entire life. Intense. I'm looking after many more sick patients than I normally look after. It's just overwhelming, the whole situation.
Once again, the government must respond to an escalating health emergency and a resurgent economic crisis as non-essential shops and services are forced to close. The government announced one-off grants of up to $12,200 for businesses, but hundreds of them have already closed for good.
The lockdowns, the tier systems, etc., especially to the hospitality sector, have had a tremendous effect, an astronomical effect on the industry. It is really, really in a bad place.
But this time there is one big difference. Britain began mass vaccinations using the Oxford University AstraZeneca jab Monday. Already 1 million people have received the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. The government aims to inoculate 2 million people every week from Monday.
If deaths start to fall as the vaccine takes effect, and critically, if everyone plays their part by following the rules, then I hope we can steadily move out of lockdown.
That could happen by March if the vaccinations go to plan. But the government warns the coming weeks will be the hardest yet since the pandemic began. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
More than 2/3 of the 15 million coronavirus vaccines shipped within the United States have so far gone unused. As VOA's Mariama Diallo reports, some states are vowing to penalize hospitals that fail to dispense shots quickly enough.
The rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine has been slower than expected, so now some states are stepping in to speed things up. In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo says hospitals must administer vaccines within a week of receiving them.
Any provider who does not use the vaccine could be fined up to $100,000. Going forward, they have to use the allocation within 7 days. Otherwise, they can be removed from future distribution.
Andrew Cuomo said hospitals have been receiving vaccines over the past 3 weeks as part of a program prioritizing frontline medical workers. But they have only administered 46% of the first dose of their allocated vaccines. Hospitalizations in New York doubled since early December to more than 8,200, and the number of new cases has jumped 27% in the last week to more than 13,600 a day. Meanwhile, in Florida, there were long lines of people waiting to receive the coronavirus vaccine. People 65 and older and frontline healthcare workers are the priority groups to receive the vaccine. Florida's governor announced the state will allocate doses to hospitals that dispense them most quickly. In California, the worst hit state in the U.S., Governor Gavin Newsom sounded the alarm.
After the last 14 days, close to 4,000 Californians have lost their lives. This is a deadly disease. This is a deadly pandemic. It remains more deadly today at any point in the history of this pandemic.
Newsom said California is also working to speed up vaccine distribution.
And you're going to start seeing the more rapid distribution of this vaccine. I can assure you of that. Now, that said, it's gone too slowly, I know, for many of us.
As the number of coronavirus cases surpasses 20.8 million cases on Tuesday, according to Johns Hopkins University, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that nearly 4.6 million shots have so far been dispensed in the U.S. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
U.S. farmers entered 2020 cheered by an easing of America's trade war with China that had disrupted lucrative agricultural exports. VOA's Ken Faribault reports any optimism was short-lived as farmers weathered a year of upheaval thanks to whipsaw market fluctuations brought on by the coronavirus pandemic.
After securing a Phase 1 agreement with China in January, temporarily cooling a heated trade dispute between the United States and one of the largest markets for its crops, farmers like Brian Duncan were optimistic.
No matter if you liked how we got there or not, we were feeling that we were ready to move forward with some trade. And then obviously COVID hit in March.
But even as the U.S. economy shut down in many parts of the country to prevent the spread of the virus, panic was initially hard to find on Scott Halpin's farm.
Fortunately, we're just a family farm and it's just a few of us, so we don't have a great deal of exposure, but we still have to get up and feed these animals because they don't really care if we have COVID-19 or not.
But the virus reached workers at several meat processing plants, curbing production that created a ripple effect through the U.S. food chain, leading to an oversupply of livestock and an undersupply of meat on store shelves.
The market's fallen off a cliff the last 2 weeks. Hogs on our farm, the prices dropped 50%.
The market for soybeans, a key source of feed for livestock, also tanked along with prices for corn, which, when converted to ethanol, is used in gasoline. Demand for fuel plummeted when motorists stayed home to avoid the virus. Corn is Fred Greeter's key source of income.
Every one of my corn acres produces enough fuel for about 80 cars to run on through the year. So for each car that's parked or miles reduced, it directly affects the demand for ethanol, which is the primary use of our corn.
Billions in government aid flowed to farmers to help soften the blow of market disruptions caused by a shuttered economy. Now, although the U.S. is grappling with the deadliest phase of the pandemic to date, the food supply chain is stable. China is also buying more U.S. crops, fueling optimism and price increases for agricultural products.
They've got huge needs, and they've exhausted supply in Brazil. I mean, Brazil's actually buying some grain from us now to carry them through till their harvest comes.
With this year's harvest complete, U.S. farmers are looking at new uncertainty in 2021 as the incoming administration of President-elect Joe Biden tackles the pandemic, inherits a trade war, and installs new agency heads key to farm policy, such as the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA. Former Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack, who held the post under President Barack Obama, is Biden's choice as well.
To some extent, it's going to be Biden wanting to go back to what he believes will be the successful policies of the Obama administration.
University of Iowa political science professor Tim Hagel says it won't be easy or practical for the incoming Biden administration to undo some of the policies enacted under President Donald Trump.
They have to combine that idea of the old and the new and deal with today's reality.
A reality that many farmers who might not have voted for Biden are coming to terms with.
I hope this administration, like any administration, would look out for rural America, would continue to want trade deals. All those things I'm hopeful we'll get. It's just too soon to know for sure, but I'm gonna hope for the best.
Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Bloomington, Illinois.
We would like to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, how Nigerian technology hubs have raised millions in funding. We'll be right back.
Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America headquarters here in Washington. I am Shaka Sali. Straight Talk Africa, we call it like it is. We discuss issues that reflect the interests of our audience without fear or favor. We are guided by facts, and I look at myself as a servant of nothing but the truth.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lina Khmoudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Control of the U.S. Senate hung in the balance Wednesday with the result of one of two runoff elections in the southern state of Georgia still too close to call. Democrats moved closer to regaining control of the chamber with the Reverend Raphael Warnock's projected defeat of Senator Kelly Loeffler in one of Tuesday's elections. U.S. media organizations called the race, with Warnock leading Loeffler by a slim margin and nearly all ballots counted. In the second election, Democrat John Ossoff, a television documentary producer, is leading over Republican David Perdue, who is seeking a second 6-year term in office. VOA congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more from Atlanta, Georgia.
In the middle of a pandemic, Georgia voters headed to the polls Tuesday, deciding the balance of political power in the U.S.
It's terrifying. I hope I'm not making the wrong decision, but I feel like the first time in years that we actually have the chance to create a future that we'd like.
In an unusual pair of runoff Senate elections, voters will determine control of the U.S. Senate, choosing among Republican incumbents David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler.
Hello, Georgia!
Or their Democratic challengers, John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. If the Democrats win both seats, then Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be able to cast the tie-breaking vote for any legislation President-elect Joe Biden wants to pass in his first 2 years in office. But some voters here say that it would be better to have a government where political power remains divided.
I don't believe that if one party is controlling all of Congress and the presidential seat, that everyone will be fully represented.
President Donald Trump's claims of voter fraud did not discourage some of his supporters from turning out to vote, saying the cost of losing was too high.
I don't want the Democrat Party to have an excessive amount of power in the United States Congress. The main reason is because the way our government is today, it's not we the people anymore, it's us the government.
But Republicans have lost ground in these Atlanta suburbs, which helped deliver the state to President-elect Joe Biden last November. Democratic voters said the new president needs the support of the Senate to get to work.
Deal with the pandemic, and I think that is so overwhelming at this point. If we just put a laser focus on that and worry about other things later.
And said they have faith in the election system despite Trump's attacks.
Without a doubt, my vote here in Georgia counts. I think it is insulting to the many, many people who have worked the polls, who have put a plan together for our Georgia voting. Even his own party is saying that the voting is correct.
A record 3 million Georgians turned out in recent weeks for early voting, and participation was high on Election Day.
It's looking like the turnout by Democrats is better than Republicans, which would be the reverse of what is typical in a Georgia runoff. I would think, if anything, the national spotlight would have motivated Republicans.
Polls in both races have remained incredibly close, and after President Trump's allegations of election fraud, officials here are expected to take their time counting every single vote. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Atlanta, Georgia.
Be sure to visit voanews.com for continuing up-to-the-minute coverage of both Senate races in Georgia. In our tech news, more than 60 technology hubs have raised millions of dollars in funding. For more on the tech scene in Nigeria, Africa 54's Paul Ndiho spoke to David Alozie, a disruptive innovations technologies consultant in Lagos.
David Alozie, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much, Paul.
You are one of the leading tech entrepreneurs in Lagos, Nigeria. Can you maybe bring me up to speed? How is the tech climate or the tech industry shaping up?
So far, in the last 4 to 5 years, there's been a lot happening. A lot of fintechs coming up. A lot of fintechs, most popular fintechs and payment companies, and a whole lot of them. So far, a lot of funding has come into Africa, in Nigeria specifically, and even Africa, and in excess of about $2 billion and all. So a lot is happening around the tech space. And recently, if you look at the comments that are happening in GitHub, it shows that a lot of people are becoming programmers out here in Nigeria. However, there are still a whole lot of youths, even in Nigeria. Most of the Nigerian population are youth, which shows a very strong opportunity because in the dispensation of where we are now, the biggest asset you can have is investment in human talents, people and talents, because with the way technology is now, a person who has talent, who has skills on how to build programs and computer innovation, him with a laptop and internet is a powerful person. He could build one startup, a multi-million dollar startup, and disrupt lots of businesses and take businesses out of places, businesses that don't want to innovate.
You are involved in a wide range of tech-related startups. What has your experience been bring these startups maybe to viable businesses?
The first thing running a startup here in Nigeria is you got to believe in what you want to do. You have to believe in yourself. Because when you come up with some of your ideas, a lot of people might not see so much sense in what you're doing. A lot of people say, hey, try to discourage you, hey, go get a job, what are you talking about, Well, recently there are a whole lot of people who are also becoming positive in these areas, especially when you have a lot of startups who are raising funds in millions of dollars, startups who are already exiting, and we have startups who exited recently and their whole capital valuation was bigger than 3 banks put together out here in Nigeria. So the whole narrative is actually, already changing. So a whole lot of things, going on in the startup scene, but, a whole lot have changed in the past 3 to 4 years, really. Looking at the numbers, the lots of investments that have come in and fundraising, and the whole traction happening all around.
For purposes of our audience, when you talk about startups, ordinary people don't understand what a startup is. What's a startup?
A tech startup starts from a few people coming up with an idea and say, hey, we could use technology to start a new kind of business, to enhance probably an existing process, a process that has to do with business or the way people live. And, we try to use technology to solve that problem. And using technology to solve that problem, you are kind of bootstrapping, without spending so much money. So you come up with your idea, you try to use your network, raise funds from maybe your friends, relations, to start running the business. Your expenses and overheads are very low. You try to be smart about how you spend, and you could have a lot of story of so many tech startups all across who are disrupting the hospitality industry, the transport industry, the banks, and all of that. So it's more of some people who see a unique way of solving problems, leveraging technology and disrupting, the business value chain.
Why is Nigeria, and specifically Lagos, where you are very attractive to a lot of venture capitalists, to a lot of these tech giants, technology companies flocking into Nigeria?
A whole lot of companies who wants to operate and not have so much maybe limitations and disruptions. So they normally we use Lagos. So Lagos is a commercial hub, with a lot of facilities and amenities that make it a good place, to run whatever business you want to run.
Well, David, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul.
That was Africa 54 tech reporter Paul Ndiho speaking to David Aluzie, a disruptive innovations technologies consultant in Lagos, Nigeria. Creative minds in the state of Georgia are using 3D printing technology to replicate ancient treasures and create new ones. VUS Julie Tabo has more.
About 2,500 years ago in ancient Greece, renowned sculptor Phidias created a giant statue of Zeus, king of the Greek gods. It was housed in a massive temple built in his honor in Olympia, the birthplace of the Olympic Games. The statue was destroyed by fire in the 5th century AD, but there have been replicas made in the years since. At Kennesaw State University in Georgia, a scale model of the statue was made using 3D printing technology.
I see it as a fun, cool way to work with the tools of engineering and opening up dialogue between engineering students and art students to discover new ways to either create art or how to work with the tools and bring those together.
The model was made out of plastic and took about 6 weeks to create.
It opens up a whole new world of interacting with that sculpture.
The sculpture was created for the Millennium Gate Museum in Atlanta, Georgia, for an exhibit commemorating the 20th anniversary of its 1996 Olympic Games. It remains the centerpiece of the museum today.
It was so striking, the difference of such a classical-looking object and the way it was made with high tech. It dazzled our visitors, young and old.
Students at the university use 3D printing technology to create modern works as well. But Cook emphasizes the important role it plays in replicating ancient treasures.
We're very conscious of the educational and architectural treasures that we are custodians of at this time. And we do our best in all our power to pass them along to the next generation.
Julie Tabo, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.
Being part of Our Voices is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.